Everyone, welcome to the Somerset North Planning Committee. Before I go any further, can I ask everyone to put their laptops onto mute if you're logged into the meeting? So I'm Councillor Cathy Pearce, Chair of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Matt Martin, Vice Chair. Housekeeping first. So if the alarm sounds this morning, we're not expecting a drill, so it's the real thing. So just head out of those double doors there and into King's Square. Toilets are in reception should you need them, and there is water on the table to your right. Please help yourself if you need to. So this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that the committee members are present in Bridgewater House, and the meeting is also available online via Teams. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. And can I remind all those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silent? And can those joining us online please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed? I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are officers from our legal and democratic teams, and to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. On the wings of the table are the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format is as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation. Councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the whole application will be able to vote. The voting options are for, against, abstain, defer. Votes will be counted and the result announced. Also, I think I just need to explain, this morning's session has been described as a special planning meeting. The only thing that is special about it is that we normally meet in the afternoon. So there were too many applications today to take all in one afternoon. So it just means it's an additional meeting. There's nothing else that's special about it. So we will now go to the main agenda, and that is firstly apologies for absence. Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for Councillor Joel Slocum, who is on long-term leave. We have got Councillor Brian Bolt, who is being substituted by Councillor Lance Dattridge, and Councillor Bob Filmer, unfortunately couldn't find a substitute, and we've got Councillor Ben Ferguson online.
Okay, thank you. We now go on to declarations of interest. Debbie, can you please give a summary just so that members of the public are clear about the declarations of interest, please?
Sure. So, councillors, please will you raise your hand if you have any declarations of interest to declare after I'm finished speaking. And for the members of the public, you have heard certain members of the committee make their declarations of interest. You will hear that in a minute. They must do this when they are twin-hatted members. That is when they are also members of a IDP, parish or town council. These are involved in a consultation process and so may have already had some dealings with the application. If the member of a committee has not taken part in the discussion, or if they have previously but can come to this committee with an open mind and not have predetermined the case, they can take part in today's discussion, debate, and vote. If they have declared an interest or predetermination, they can only speak on the application at the appropriate time and will have to leave the room and cannot take part in the vote. Is there anything else you'd like me to clarify?
No, thank you. But we'll just ask now for any members with declarations interest to declare. Right, so
you tell me what they are. You need to make a note of what they are.
Sorry, I'll go first then. Mine is for the Monmouth Street item on page 13, and that is as a member of Bridgewater Town Council. It's a non-registrable interest, and I have not taken part in any debate or discussion about it. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding item 5, I have been involved in conversations in the past, but I come with an open mind and I remain undetermined.
Member of the Parrot Drainage Board, but I haven't taken part in any discussions on the items. Thank you.
Councillor Smedley,
Member of Bridgewater Town Council, not on the planning panel, haven't taken part in anything.
Councillor Han,
Member of Axbridge Town Council, but there are no applications for my ward.
thank you. Councillor Pendry,
Okay, thank you, Chair. I am a member of the Axbridge Drainage Board, but any discussions with anybody, thank you.
and Councillor Doddridge.
Member of Parrot Drainage Board, haven't taken part in any discussions.
Thank you. Can I just let members know we are sharing microphones this morning because we're afraid the batteries won't last if we each have a microphone each. So we'll be sharing it for both sessions. So hope that will be okay. Okay, so next is public questions. Members of the public who have registered. I'm sorry. Public question. I think my battery's already going, in fact, so. That is a microphone, I'm not me.
Yes. I was using yours. I will go and get you another one.
All right.
Because I was going. You should have spoken.
Apologies.
This is a professional outfit and we will get through this.
Chairman, I suggest we get some batteries in order. Yep. I know there's talk of doing away with the planning committees. That might happen quick, it might happen not, but I do feel that we've got to be heard what we're going to say.
Well, absolutely. Okay, we're fully functional again for the moment anyway. Public question time. Members of the public have registered to speak and I'll call you forward to the table in the front when we're considering each application. So that takes us right on to our first application of the morning, and that is the planning application for 12 Monmouth Street, Bridgewater. And Louise will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This application is for the erection of 33 dwellings, conversion of the existing building on the frontage of Monmouth Street to create 6 dwellings, improvement to the existing access, landscaping and additional works to include the demolition of redundant buildings. The main considerations of the application are fully set out and detailed within the officer report in front of you members, and these are the main considerations, a whole host of range of matters here, principle of development, the individual specialist items, contamination, archaeology, ecology, design, residential amenity, highways, flood risk and landscape in an open space. And then we have sustainability matters, and then the affordable housing provision as proposed and vacant building credit and planning obligations. I won't intend within this presentation to go into full detail on each of these matters. You'll probably be pleased to hear. However, these are fully set out in detail in the report. And I will just pick up some of the key points raised through objections. Let me take you through the site itself. So this is a location of the site, bounded by the A38 on its west side, to the south St John Street and to the east side Holden Street. This is a proposed site plan and layout showing the frontage building there, the conversion into the 6 units, and then the new dwellings in a few terrace blocks to the rear of the site. This is the elevations of the proposed conversion of the frontage building. We've got here on the slide the existing elevations and the proposed elevations. And you will see there is a removal of some of the more modern frontage additions along that Monmouth Street frontage there, partly to create an improved access on the corner of the site there, and also just to bring that back into a much more improved and better designed frontage, as we'll see from the photographs of the site itself. The proposed conversion floor plans on the left there is just the sort of office elements of that building. And then on the right hand side, we've got the 3 floors of the proposed residential usage. Originally, out of interest for members, they were proposed to be converted to 9 units in this building. However, that was reduced to 6 through negotiations with the developers in terms of providing adequate and safe refuge at first floor level. Then we have the 2-bed houses on the site, and these are the elevations proposed for those. Quite a modern appearance here, using a combination of sort of the industrial heritage side of uses and a modern construction there. And the floor plans of those units. And similarly for the 3-bed houses, which are 3-storey, with rooms in the roof, so not fully 3-storey and then a roof on top. These are sort of roof converted with dormer windows used there. And again, appropriate materials and elevations detailing there. The floor plans of the 3-bed houses. And then this is a proposed drainage for the site, which has been agreed with the LLFA, just showing the outfalls and main connections there. So we have some photographs of the site. These are quite useful drone images that have been provided from the applicants here, and I think they're quite good just to see the views of the site and the relationship with the neighbouring buildings and properties. So this is taken from the south and oriented towards the north. You can see the rear of the Polden Street properties on the top right-hand corner. And we have the drone photograph of the site taken from the west. You can see the frontage buildings there in the foreground of this image. There we go. Having mouse issue. This is a drone photograph from the east and orientated towards the west, which demonstrates the rear of the Polden Street properties here. And we have a range of size of rear gardens, and that is set out within the officer report there in terms of impact on the residential amenities of these properties. We have the frontage of Monmouth Street, and here we have the old sort of shop frontage details of those properties and the access there on the left-hand side. And then this is the access to the site, both existing and proposed. This is a view from within the site along the access back out to Monmouth Street. Within the site towards the northeast, and that's number 24 Monmouth Street on the left-hand side. And the views towards the rear of the Polden Street properties. The view towards the southwest with the Coral Court flats you can just see poking in the background there above. And then this is the hangar building, which is described in the report, which is to be relocated to Westminster Oiland Aviation Museum. So Bridgwater Town Council raised an objection to this application and maintained this objection. And it's relating to the access, and they're stating that it was too narrow and suggest removing plots 34 and 35. The agent has liaised directly with the Town Council on this matter, and there's no objection raised from Highways to the access. Number 34 and 35 are part of the conversion of the historic frontage buildings, so it is not possible for us to accept a loss of part of those buildings, as they are identified as quite key in terms of the conservation area and the frontage there. Other representations received, a number of objections relating to traffic and parking, changing character of the site, overdevelopment and residential amenity impact, all fully set out in the report. And there are some representations supporting the application, stating it will benefit the area and that the existing site is run down and an eyesore within a key part of the centre of Bridgwater. Now, just a note on vacant building credit. This is a matter that doesn't come up that frequently within planning, but it's set out fully within the National Planning Policy Framework. And the purpose is to support the use of brownfield land. And what it does, in effect, is reduce the amount of affordable housing by the equivalent amount of the gross floor space of the existing buildings. So I've tried to simplify it here with these tables on the screen. So basically what it does is, what's the floor area of the existing buildings? And then what is the area of the proposed dwellings? and what's the difference between the two, and what is that percentage then increase in floor area. And then you calculate your policy requirement. So if it were all brand new buildings here, we would have a 15% affordable housing requirement to be policy compliant, which would be 5.85 units of affordable housing. And here we are looking at applying the vacant building credit, which means we're looking at 17.75% of 5.85. So I'm not a great mathematician myself, but that equates to 1.04 units. So what we are in essence delivering here is 1 unit of affordable housing on the scheme, because we have to give consideration and weight to the conversion of the existing building. So the planning balance here, the principle of development is acceptable as it's a brownfield site in the urban area, Bridgewater, making good use of an existing vacant building and removing buildings that are no longer in use. The design of it is of a high quality, respects the heritage assets. There's no increase in flood risk and first floor refuges are provided. Residential amenity is not adversely affected to a significant amount. There are economic benefits through job creation and additional local spend. Sustainable construction measures are included, including drainage and carbon reduction. A biodiversity net gain is achieved here. We have just over 200% increase in biodiversity net gain. That's mainly because of it being quite a developed site itself with very little biodiversity in place. It is sustainably located for cycle and pedestrian connectivity, and that's quite key in terms of the council's recently adopted placemaking principles. So we're fully meeting the objectives set out there. And it provides for the 1 discounted affordable unit, a travel plan and a local area for play to be secured through a 106 agreement. And it accords with the development plan and all material considerations. An update here just for you on condition matters. So we've had some further negotiations with the agents regarding the construction environmental management plan, and it is recommended that we revise this to a compliance condition as it's known, which means the development shall be carried out in accordance with the details of the document that we've already received and that has been agreed with all our relevant consultees. So that's set out on that page. Conditions 7 and 8 relate to surface water drainage, and discussions have been ongoing between the agent, officers and the local flood authority relating to the details already submitted and those to be further provided. The matters are agreed in principle in terms of surface water drainage, and what we're seeking to do here is liaise with the agent to agree those that can be done so to avoid further details having to be submitted through discharge of condition applications. And relating to contamination, we did receive a remediation method statement yesterday to address the requirements of some of the conditions that are set out in the report. Now, this will require further review by our environmental health colleagues and by officers. Therefore, our recommendation is to grant planning permission, subject to the prior signing of a Section 106 agreement to secure 1 affordable dwelling, travel plan and lap and open space provision, and the majority of the conditions set out in the officer report. Officers request that members delegate the final wording of the conditions to secure both surface water drainage and contamination details to officers following further liaison and agreement with the technical consultees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. We have 3 speakers on this item, and I'd like to ask Ernie Turner to come to the table, please, who I believe is speaking in support. You have 3 minutes. If you just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer. Thank you.
Yep, okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. I own 22 Monmouth Street, which is a Grade 2 listed property and is bounded by the development site on the southeast and southwest. Southwest boundary being the new access road and southeast facing Portland Street. And as you said, I'm here to support the development. This building site, as you know, has been former site. It's been vacant for over 3 years now, but has continued to deteriorate really in that period of time. And it was always known that it would be a residential site eventually. So, you know, from my perspective, the sooner that starts moving, the better. As I said, the site has become increasingly dilapidated. There's also sort of unsightly, and I've seen an amount of antisocial behaviour as well. I myself recently had a break into my property earlier this year, where the burglars used a ladder to get over a boundary wall from the site onto my property, broke the way in. Didn't take very much, but did quite a bit of damage and smashed the way out of the building again. So, you know, I feel that there's considerable security elements to improving this site and a reduction of antisocial behaviour, and I think that would be a benefit for all neighbours. I've sort of also taken a view, and Louise put detail there, on the planners, you know, to represent, you know, what the local plans are, the rights of the neighbours, and the social contribution. So, and similarly, I think with the road access, with the highways, you know, they would be the authority of this really, and suggest that it is compliant. From my perspective as well, any reduced amount of roadworks or activity on the A38 would be a benefit to the town and the surrounding area. We all see the sort of paralysis that we're suffering at the moment with the development. And so really, in summary, I'm supporting the scheme because the sooner we can make these improvements, the better. It does look a good scheme, and I think it brings betterment for the local area and the town. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have another speaker in support, Rob Harding, who I understand is joining us online. Just bear with us a moment. We'll, okay. Mr. Harding, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear fine.
Okay, thank you. We, as you know, you have 3 minutes to speak. What we'll do, because you're online, is when we get to a minute left, we'll let you know that you're approaching the end of your time. So just let us know when you're ready to start, and we will set the timer. Hello, would you like to start?
Name is Rob Harding.
Just a slight technical hitch.
I think he's
for those
gone.
Listening online.
Has he gone?
It's Diane Harding, look.
Oh, he should be there then.
I think this thing needs the volume turned up.
No. Mr. Harding, can you hear us at the moment?
I sent a message on the chat as well. Yes, here. No, it's all done on here. It works exactly like our. So where's the volume? What's this happen? Ah.
Right. That's. I think that's.
It's just me. Oh,
No, it's not that. That's share. Voice settings.
Mr. Harding, could you just say something, please? Because we're not sure if the microphone's working.
Testing.
It is.
Yeah, so we
it's
can
not
hear.
terribly loud, but we've got people working on it as we speak. So if you just bear with us for a moment, please, and then
Sure,
I'll let you
okay.
know when we're ready. Thank you.
there we are. It's 100% now. We found it.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Harding, if you'd like to start, please.
Okay. My name is Rob Harding. I live at 40.
Sorry, Mr. Harding, I'm going to have to stop you there because we can't hear you. Are you sure? Can you switch your microphone up as loud as it can go, please? On your
Problem seems to be Ben because
Up to 100%.
Can you try one more time and we'll see if we can hear you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you at all. I really apologise. I don't know what the problem is, but we do have your statement. Are you happy for it to be read out to the committee on your behalf, please?
yes, please.
Lovely. Thank you very. Oh, we hear
Thank
you
you.
now. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's best if we have it read out because we could be here some time sorting this out. Thank you, Debbie.
My name is Rob Harding and I live at 49 Polden Street with my wife Diane. We also own 45 Polden Street, which we rent out to our son. Our houses adjoin the northern part of the yard. Often it's only objectors who take the time to make their voices heard, which can create a false impression of what the whole community thinks. My wife and I wanted to make sure you hear a different perspective. As neighbours of the site, we'd like to express our full support for the application. Mr. and Mrs. Middleton Smith have been excellent throughout the process. They have kept us fully informed about the proposals right from the beginning and have made sure the design respects the existing properties around the site. In particular, we appreciate how the houses have been carefully positioned to maximise privacy, which is something we really value. We have lived next to Pollard's yard for a number of years, my wife having lived here since 1976 with her parents, and to be honest, it has been far from ideal. The daily noise was a big issue, especially the loud drone of the extractor fans starting at 7:30 a.m., even on Saturdays. Dust from the yard constantly on our clean washing, and the noise made it hard to enjoy our garden. When we raised these issues with the former site owners of the yard, they never took our concerns seriously. So for years, we've had to put up with the disruption. This site is surrounded by houses and quite frankly is just not the right place for a busy, noisy builder's yard. This is why we are so pleased about the plans to redevelop the site into family houses. It's a residential area and this will be a huge improvement for everybody nearby. As local residents and neighbours of the site, we strongly urge you to approve this proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, are you happy with that? He's on me. Okay. Thank you. And I apologise again for the problems in the sound. Thank you. We have one final speaker, and this is Peter Grubb from Lighthouse Development Consulting. Mr. Grubb, if you'd like to come forward, please.
Thank you. I'll keep it simple with pen and paper.
Thank you. And 3 minutes from when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today as the agent on behalf of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Middleton Smith. Since acquiring this site, the applicants have been actively seeking out and listening to feedback on how the site should come forward. As a result, the scheme has undergone extensive refinement since its inception, incorporating valuable input from the design team, neighbouring occupiers during the early public consultations, productive pre-application discussions with officers, and additional adjustments during the planning process to address feedback from statutory consultees. We believe that the proposals before you are now highly polished and represent the best possible solution for this site. I'd like you to please note the following important achievements. Protection of the conservation area by retention and renovation of the frontage building. Protection of neighbouring privacy through careful building orientation and spacing. Conservation of local heritage by maintaining views of the church, creating a substantial buffer around St John's House, and dismantling and relocating the former non-listed aircraft hangar from the site to the Aviation Museum. Appropriate density and housing mix. Based on advice from a local agent, we know that 75% of the demand in this location comes from young professional couples and retired couples, with the remaining 25% of demand from young families. The proposed mix of 2 and 3 bedroom houses, along with a variety of garden sizes, intentionally matches this identified demand. Policy also requires us to make the best use of a brownfield site, which this scheme does. Biodiversity net gain through landscaping and ecological enhancements. Sustainability features, insulation exceeding building regs Part L, EV charging points for every plot, the use of heat pumps and rooftop PV, and no fossil fuels being used. Flood risk management, finished floor levels are set above predicted flood heights, with all surface water managed on site through underground attenuation crates. And crime prevention. The design eliminates opportunities for crime by providing high levels of natural surveillance and avoiding blind spots and alleyways. So finally, just turning to access, Bridgewater Town Council have raised concerns about this aspect of the scheme. The development will generate fewer traffic movements overall than the site's previous use, including far fewer larger vehicle movements, which is enough to make it acceptable in that regard. But additionally, the access is being significantly upgraded as well, with better visibility achieved by removing the front porch near the access, installing tactile paving on the street, and creating a shared surface with a pedestrian walkway. Both Somerset Highways and National Highways support this scheme, and it has successfully passed a highway safety audit. This is a very high quality scheme, and there are no outstanding planning issues. I therefore respectfully request that you grant conditional planning permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, open it up for questions, debates, any comments? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I personally can't see a great deal wrong with this application. It seems to be a good use of the space. I like the fact that the hangar's being relocated. That's important. And as the gentleman said online a moment ago, we need the housing, and it seemed like a good solution with that. The only problem I have, I think, is me picking bones out of it, is the sweat path analysis for the refuse collection, which puts the refuse collection point along with the substation right next to the lab, local area of play, that is. That means, well, according to the document, that there's a resident drag distance of 28.1 metres and a bin operative drag distance of 14.7 metres, giving a total drag distance of 42.8 metres. Drag distance aside, I just wonder what was the rationale to put it next to the play area and the substation. The substation, not so much, but the kids, I think, shouldn't be lumped in with the refuse. Was there really no other option for that? Thank you.
I come in on this one, thank you. Yeah, I'm just liaising here with Jodie from Highways. We understand that to be a part of the sort of evolution and design sort of negotiations on the scheme to bring it under the 30 metre requirement for the residents for drag distance. It is unfortunate in terms of its position next to the lab. However, it's one of these balancing sort of exercises. And I think, unless I'm corrected otherwise, it's not the total drag distance. You have the collection distance and then the individual house occupier drag distance.
The total drag distance is 42.8, but I wondered if that couldn't be turned around, where the bin operative, I can't even say it, the bin man drag distance could be 28.1 and the resident drag distance to 14.7, moving that location to the other end of the site. So it's not where all the children, we hope, would be. Yeah. Yeah. My area.
It's a possibility, but I suppose I need to fall back on the detail is as it is set out in front of us. And I think we have had Jodie was and I were just sort of discussing, it's got its kind of pros and cons. You're either going to move it to the other side of the local area for play, which again has still got that potential conflict. However, I would also raise the point that the bin collection is going to be on a quite infrequent sort of time period. So it's not going to be all the time in terms of bin lorries and that clash with potential children playing.
And sorry, with regard to the refuse collection as well, is it to be that the bins, the wheelie bin things will just go out onto the side of the road at that point? Or will they go into some sort of collection point? What do you call that, by the side of the road?
No, we just showing it as a collection point. So the bins don't stay there; they're taken out there for collection day.
That's right. Yeah, but do they go into some sort of cupboard or? Yeah, not. I mean, does everybody just put 15 bins there, or is there a rack for them or something?
No, what we do have that could be addressed and covered through the landscaping conditions that are proposed on the application. So we have a condition for hard and soft landscaping, so we can ensure that we do include within that the bin collection points.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of points here, only observations, not questions. The floor height, I have to assume, comes under the heading for refuge height, because I hear everybody talking about it's been raised up. But this is something new that's come in recently, but that's absolutely fine. EV points are all accounted for, and I think that's really good too. One little niggle was I believe I've actually walked around this side. I walked in there and had a look around. The party wall, as you walk in on the right-hand side, is a tall red brick wall. Apparently there was some dispute between the owner of the factory stroke buildings on the other side of that wall. I only have to assume that's been addressed now, but there was a problem with that because the factory owner next door, there was a lot of dispute going on about this, but I do have to believe that's been addressed and pointed out. I'll take you to page 17, paragraphs 3 and 4. The Bridgewater Town Council have problems with the entry and the exit onto the main road as you come out. Well, paragraphs 3 and 4, page 17 state quite clearly that national highways and Somerset highways have got no problem at all with this. So really, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. It is narrow, it is a little bit narrow onto the main road, but as I just said, national highways and Somerset highways don't have a problem. So on that basis, I don't have a problem either. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you anything to say about the party wall?
Yes, this is Party Wall Act, and any relevant matters relating to that is a civil matter. So it's between the respective legal owners of the land and buildings. So it doesn't come under consideration for planning. We would often put an informative on, just advising property owners of that.
Councillor Smedley.
So picking up on the objections from Bridgewater Town Council, I note in their objection, they say the highways hadn't made comments at the time that they made that objection about the lack of visibility and the narrowness of that passage. Have you spoken to representatives of Bridgewater Town Council since that highway comment has come in, and have they changed their mind in any way, or are conditions possibly in place to support that now? And the other question mentions about the archaeological survey required. I can't remember which one that says it in here, but a little bit surprised because I would normally object on these grounds, but I don't recall any medieval site on that bit of Bridgewater. Because medieval Bridgewater finished at the Mercure Hotel, which wasn't there then. But beyond there, I don't remember anything in particular. Is there something that I've missed in terms of medieval settlement there?
Yeah, I can answer both of those points. So in respect to the highways comments, we did undertake a further reconsultation out to all parties, including the town council, on the application, and that was following the initial highways comments. But discussions and negotiations did evolve over time. What the town council did come back for us stating was that their previous concerns still stood. And then also we had the further discussions with highways, and those amendments were made to the frontage building to remove the the front corner element, should I describe it as that, to allow for increased visibility space to meet the highways requirements. I am also aware and have been copied in on exchanges from the agent themselves with the town council expressing that the highways authority were now accepting the position and encouraging a change of position, and the town council's response was to maintain their objection on those grounds. So an attempt was made to address that. It's not our place as officers to lobby the town council to change their opinion, but that has been undertaken, and they maintained their position on that. In terms of archaeology, I would refer to page 30 of the report, paragraph 11.52. So Southwest Heritage have advised that the site does lie in an area of high potential for archaeology. So it's at the end of Monmouth Street, near the site of the former East Gate and the former medieval hospital of St John the Baptist. So there is potential for the presence of medieval settlement activity, recognising that the site obviously was a builder's yard and had former development on there. However, it's recommended that a further written scheme of investigation for archaeology is conditioned, and one is recommended on that basis.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Madam Chairman. This could be a good legacy. Pollards did an awful lot of building around Bridgewater, a lot of things relied on that firm, etc., over a period of years. And it'd be a vast improvement that into town. We've got the motorway being done now and things. The station's been updated a little bit, and I see it's only 600 yards away from the railway station. I hear nothing mentioned about her.
Yeah, it's within the report. Would you like to respond?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be awkward, but next my ears are I don't get the mention.
No, that's fine. I'm not sure if I specifically detailed parking levels in the report, but I did in my verbal report.
Right.
Within the written report, 11.65, just set that out on page 32. And we have a provision of 62 car parking spaces. Yeah, so we have 39 units on the site. And obviously we also have the travel plan as part of the Section 106 agreement, which encourages the non-car motor transport. We've got the excellent, as I said, celebration mile works, pedestrian and cycle improvements across Bridgewater. It's ticking those boxes in terms of our placemaking principles. Thank you.
Secondly, this one about affordable dwellings getting more confusing every month. We can't go planning committee. I fancy it does. Is everybody clear about that one? The number of feet per space per 4 units. We got to go into affordable housing. It's the first time I've come across this one, to be honest. I'm sorry to be awkward again, but
Absolutely fine. No, it's
understand these things, so we put our round up.
absolutely fine. No, it's not as I said, it's not a common occurrence within the planning world. I mean, I've done this for 20 odd years. It's maybe come up 2 or 3 times in my experience, but it's a government's encouragement of reuse of brownfield sites and buildings that aren't derelict, but that are vacant, and to encourage their reuse, both in sustainable terms, but also to get these sites back up and into an active use. And so I've tried to keep it simple for you and explain it's the net difference in terms of floor area. So say I'm going to keep it very simple now. Say you're proposing to build 10 square meters, say it's tiny houses, and you have an existing amount on site of 8. So therefore you're only looking at providing for the difference in that in terms of affordable, and it's applying the policy percentage requirement to the difference in the 2 numbers.
I've come across this.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on planning for 18 years. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
Okay?
no, that's fine. Thank you.
In view of what you told me, I've got no problem in moving the motion forward, to be honest with you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I've just got two confirmed speakers, and that's Councillor Ham and then Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a minor comment on Councillor Martin's proposal or suggestion, which I understand in making, but I've got a concern about a sheltered space being provided which is going to be empty the majority of the time, right next to a play area. Because in my experience, if you provide a shelter, youths will congregate there, not necessarily for the best of reasons, and as it's next to the play area, I would have a sheet screening, maybe yes, but I think a covered area might be a bit of an invitation for misuse.
Yeah, as I set out, I think our landscaping condition requirements would require those details to come into us. And we would take that into consideration, very much as the police secure by design considerations there. I think we'd be looking for something that improves the street scene, but we don't want to be encouraging anything antisocial behaviour wise. Thank you.
Thank you. And councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think after listening to the debate, and it's certainly interesting to hear from the residents who actually live there, and giving their support. I have no problems with this application at all. And if Councillor Bradford hasn't supported this, then I will second it if he has. Thank you.
So my understanding is councillor Bradford, you are proposing the officer's recommendation to grant permission, but with the alterations to the conditions as described at the beginning. I did make a list, but it might be better if you could go through them again, just to make sure we're all absolutely clear.
Yes, it's to grant permission subject to the signing of the 106 agreement as set out. And then with the delegation to officers for the final wording of those conditions on the screen there, which are 7 to 8, surface water drainage, and 11 to 14, which is contamination, to be delegated to officers. And then the change to the wording of condition 6 to a compliance condition.
Are you happy with that, councillor Bradford and councillor Grimes in
Yes,
seconding?
definitely.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder to grant permission. All those in favour, please show. So that is 9 in favour, any against? And any abstentions? And 1 abstention, I think. Yeah, okay, so that is passed, that's carried, thank you. So that takes us on to the next item on the agenda, which is the application regarding land to the north of Oliver's Road, Middlezoy. I'll just give Millie time to come to the table to present.
Is it working? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So this is a variation of condition application in relation to, a previous variation of condition that also came to committee for land to the north of Oliver's Road. The variation seeks to amend the list of the approved plans in order to permit the amendment of the consented height of the stockpile. So the application is for 4 members, as the parish council have objected to the proposal due to concerns of soil handling management plan or absence of one, proximity to the phosphate catchment area, HGV movements, and general amenity of the area. So as this is a section 73, the only considerations to be made relate to the amendments that are sought. So in this respect of this application, that would be D2 and D19, the policies of the local plan. So just to recap the site, so the application site is located in the countryside, to the east of West Royland and to the north of Middlezoy. So this slide outlines the application site itself. So it connects to Oliver's Road, which is an unclassified road. So in terms of the history, so the original planning application was granted at committee in November last year for the formation of a temporary material stockpile to allow for reservoir embankment construction along with associated works. This was then followed by an application in June 2024 for the variation of a condition to allow for a change to the proposed access route, and that was also granted at committee. So as briefly discussed, this application seeks consent to vary the list of approved plans to allow for the stockpile height to be varied from up to a maximum of 2 metres to up to a maximum of 4 metres. The stockpile is not proposed to be 4 metres in height across the whole of the stockpile and would not be a result of an increased volume of material. The same volume of material is proposed. It's simply that the area that the stockpile is going to be placed on is slightly smaller. So I will show you the original and amended drawings. Can't really see much difference in them, if I'm honest, because it's the tiny numbers which talk about the height. So this is the original drawing. This is the amended drawing. As you can see, can't really see much, but it's simply that it's the numbers dictating what the maximum height would be in that particular point. And then this is the original drawing of the section of the stockpile. And this is the amended drawing of the sections of the stockpile. I have also included my original site photos. So these are from last year, so you won't see any development in these pictures. So this is the access to the site from Oliver's Road, and it goes along this track, keeps going along this track. And then that field is effectively where the application site is. There's just another view of it. And again, just wider views of the site. But like I say, this was these are taken before the original consent was granted. So considering the visual impact of the increased stockpile height, the application site is in an isolated location and public rights of way are in the vicinity. It is noted that there would be an impact during the lifetime of the development. However, this is a temporary development with an intent to restore the land to its former appearance by late 2025, and there is a condition that secures this. Considering other matters that have been raised by the parish council, the proposal does not seek to increase the volume of material stored, and there would still be a requirement for the associated construction traffic to adhere to the previously approved CTMP on the previous application. Additionally, there's no objection from highways in respect of the amendments sought. Parish council have also raised concerns that there has been non-compliance with the CTMP. However, this would need to be raised with planning enforcement if a breach did occur. The LLFA have been consulted on this application and they consider that the proposed amendment would not affect the potential flood risk and surface water drainage to the site. Considering the parish council's concern about the site's proximity to the phosphate catchment area, the ecologists did not raise any concerns in relation to phosphates when the original application was made. And given that this proposal does not seek to increase the volume of material, is temporary in nature and does not seek to introduce nutrient generating activities to the site, it's considered that the proposed amendment would not increase the impact on the Ramsar in comparison to the consented scheme. The parish council also referred to an Article 4 direction that includes the land of the application site. So this Article 4 relates to the removal of permitted development rights in respect of the erection of agricultural buildings and the use of land as a caravan site, so it's not considered relevant to this planning application. It's therefore the officer's recommendation to approve the variation of condition application to allow for the change in the drawing list and carrying over all of the other previous conditions, for instance, ensuring the temporary nature of the development and compliance with the CTMP. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 speakers on this application. First of all, I'd like to call Councillor Liz Parfitts, who's Vice Chair of Western Zoyland Parish Council, to the table, please. I understand this is in objection. Okay, you'll have 3 minutes, so just when you're ready to start, we'll set the timer. Your microphone on. Oh, yes. Yes, when you're ready, if you put the microphone on as well, please. Thanks.
Thank you. We come here today to object to aspects of this planning application. Specifically, to raise the stockpile height to 4 metres is a material consideration that has impact on the pollution generating properties of the stockpile. In addition, prevailing wind would carry the pollutants towards the Ramsar. Phosphates would enter the River Parrett phosphate catchment at the eastern boundary of the site as well. In addition, Natural England, a statutory consultee, were not consulted in this new application. And in the absence of consultation with DEFRA and other environmental bodies, there's potential for bias from the Environment Agency itself. Therefore, a decision made today might be vulnerable to legal challenge. We also state that it's not necessary to double the maximum height. We understand about the condition to terminate the use of the land by November next year. And in November, the Environment Agency said in the Freedom of Information response that the stockpile is now full, and after a review of their forward requirements, they believe they're close to having sufficient material available for next year's work already. So why double the height? We asked for a soil management plan because 4 metres of clay and silt stockpiles would experience different changes: increased compaction and waterlogging, rapid evolution of anaerobic conditions, decomposition, generating more ammonia and phosphates, more wind whipping of the dust towards the Ramsar site, 330 metres away, and its Reens, increased runoff carried dissolved nutrients towards the Parrett phosphate catchment zone, and therefore greater decline in the already unsatisfactory nutrient status of the Ramsar and of the sites that receive the soil from this reservoir as well, themselves in sensitive locations. So to avoid this environmental harm, we ask for relevant conditions: height restricted to 3, not 4 metres, the angle of repose to 20 to 25 degrees, adherence to a published agreed wet weather protocol, and the fill limit agreed, as suggested, to 25,000 metres cubed. And this information comes from Natural England, from DEFRA, indeed Realis Atkins themselves in other work, and from soil consultation bodies as well. So the final question is this proposal Schedule 2 under EIA regulations? It's grade 1 agricultural land, exceeds 1 hectare, is used to store soil for the relief of floods close to Ramsar, but next to a site that itself has experienced a failure in environmental quality standards, generating massive amounts of ammonia and nutrient pollution through ensiling and anaerobic digestate composting as well. None of these impacts have been considered in the report, nor has the factoring in of the release of CO2 been seen. NPPF Chapter 15, 180, 185, 186, 191, 195 have not been considered, and this is in disagreement with Safemore Local Plan 20.
Thank you. Raised a number of issues there. They'll be addressed when all the speaking time is finished. Okay. Next, I'd like to call Councillor Andy Dingwall, who's divisional member, to the table, please. As usual, 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll start by begging leniency. If I think you might have heard me in the back of your recovering from a cold. I've been drinking. I should be all right for the moment, but just in case. Thank you. Good to go. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on this item. I'm Andy Dingwall. I'm Somerset Councillor for Bridgewater East and Bordrip. I also live in Western Zoyland and sit on Western Zoyland Parish Council. I'm here to speak to oppose this application, or at least delay to allow some further consideration. Councillors, if we were today to bring you plans for a new industrial park to process and store soil waste and minerals covering more than a square mile of historic airfield bordering an SSSI, with the main transport access being through a small village or a road that is barely more than a farm track, I imagine there'd be significant thought and conditions attached to the permission. Improvements to the infrastructure, Section 104 agreements and SIL payments to the impacted villages would be the bare minimum. We have, piece by piece, established just such a site on Western Zoyland Airfield. We have 4 major businesses operating in exactly such a way. I'm not coming to you today with a thin end of the wedge argument. We are at the thick end of the wedge. My patch, Bridgewater East and Bordrip, is forecast to be the most populous division in Somerset by 2030 on the current boundaries, which are of course about to change. We've several thousand new homes scheduled to be under development. With the impact of HPC, we've got the Agritas site on our border, and despite all of this, HGV traffic through Western Zoyland is the single biggest issue in my inbox and in conversations with residents. Due to lack of proper infrastructure, we've had a number of very near misses between HGVs and pedestrians through the village. We've reports of HGV movements outside of appropriate working hours through the night, very early mornings and in the weekends. We've cases of structural damage to properties that have stood in the village since before there was an airfield, indeed before there was an air force, caused by the constant vibrations of more than 150 HGV movements per day, every day. Western Zoyland Parish Council has, to my knowledge, received no structured sill payments to mitigate the impact to the village. And the A372 generally and Oliver's Road specifically remain woefully inadequate and in some cases actively dangerous. There has been no strategic level traffic management plan in place for the wider use of the airfield site. So my request to the committee today is that during your deliberations, during your debates today, is that you consider deferring this decision until all relevant statutory consultees, as referenced by my colleague Liz, have been properly consulted. That perhaps you use the time during a deferral to arrange a visit to the site and see the increased impact of HGV traffic, the actual use of the sites and the boundaries that they're currently using. That this committee also consider whether it might be appropriate to refer this case and the wider use of the Western Zoyland airfield sites to the Minerals and Waste or Strategic Planning Committees for additional perspective, and that the committee consider implementing a strategic traffic management plan and take into account all airfield business impact and review the routes and infrastructure in and around Western Zoyland airfield. Thank you very much. Cheers.
The final speaker is Charmaine Angel, who is from Atkins Realist, who is online, I believe.
Good morning. Yes.
Good morning, love. We can hear you loud and clear. If you just bear with us a moment, please. We're just doing some IT. That's right. We can see you now. That's okay. You have 3 minutes, and we'll set the timer, and we'll let you know as you're online when you're coming up to the when you're at the 1 minute stage, so you'll know when you're near the end. All right. So if you're ready to speak, please. Are you ready?
Yeah. I am. Yes.
Start now.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the Environment Agency as the agent. This application is made by the Environment Agency to vary a planning permission which was granted the 11th of June of this year. The planning application sought permission for a temporary stockpile to enable essential improvement works required in the interests of safety at several Wessex reservoir sites. This application is to increase the height of the stockpile of soil, which needs to be temporarily stored on the land, from the currently permitted 2 meters to a maximum of 4 meters. The reason for increasing the height of the stockpile of soil is that archaeological and environmental constraints in the field identified for the stockpile have required the footprint of the stockpile to be significantly reduced. This means that the total volume of soil required to be stored on the land cannot be achieved in the reduced footprint without a higher stockpile. The increased height will allow all of the stockpile to be moved to site in one operation, which will be more efficient and significantly less disruptive than the alternative of a number of topping up HGV deliveries over a number of months. It is expected that the efficiency gains mean that the total number of HGV movements should be reduced. Somerset Council, as Highways Authority, has no objection to this application. The Environment Agency is aware of the concerns which have been expressed by the Parish Council and some local residents. The Environment Agency can confirm that HGVs used to transport soil to the stockpile are only using the designated routes within the approved traffic management plan. These routes do not pass through the village of Weston Zoyland. The main contractor, Kia, has carried out regular checks, including active monitoring to check that only approved routes are being used. These checks have confirmed that HGV movements have been fully compliant with the approved traffic management plan. Public observations may have been influenced by the fact that the same haulers and HGVs are also currently being used in connection with separate developments at the Towan site, the airfield, and the National Grid electricity distribution substation. The increased in height of the stockpile is needed to deliver the project efficiently and will not result in an increase in HGV movements. The Environment Agency respectfully asks the councillors to follow the recommendation in the case officer's report and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we had a number of issues raised there around contamination, the traffic generation. Would you like to respond, please?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So a few notes I've made. Just to emphasise, the volume of material that's going to be stored is not changing. It's the same amount of material. So the original was for a 2 metre maximum, approximately maximum, to store 20,000 to 30,000 cubic metres of material. This amendment seeks to amend the maximum height of 4 metres, bearing in mind it won't be 4 metres across the whole of the pile, it's just the absolute maximum, and to store 25,000 cubic metres of material. So that's within that original range, 20 to 30,000. In terms of the concerns about the phosphates, so it's near the boundary of the catchment, not the actual SSSI itself. Ecology didn't raise any concerns in terms of the original proposal, and there doesn't seek to be any increase of the volume of material stored. Also, I would emphasise that this is temporary. There is a condition that the land has to be reinstated by November next year. So it's not even, the stockpile itself won't even be there until November. It has to be reinstated by that time. Considering some of the other comments that were raised, so in terms of the other sort of stockpiles of soil that are in the vicinity of the airfield, these are other developments that are going on. So as one of the speakers mentioned, there's the Towan site, there's a couple other, I think it's the Durston site as well, but there's other sites in the vicinity. How those vehicle movements are managed would be subject to their own individual, whatever the conditions are for those planning approvals, or I think one of the sites as well is currently under consideration. The CTMP for this site does not permit HGV movements through the Weston Zoyland village. And then there was a mention about SIL. That is a separate matter. So this isn't SIL liable development. Things like new housing would be SIL liable. And payments are made to the parish council once we've received that money, and then they're made twice a year after we've received that money. And quite often we receive that money in instalments, but it's irrelevant to this development. I'm just sort of giving a bit more context about why is there no SIL in association with this development. So I think I've covered everything off, but unless, Gary, you had anything else? Yeah.
Just there was a mention of Natural England hadn't been consulted.
I mean, I'm not even sure if they were consulted on the original. I would have to look back through. I'm just trying to have a... No. So there's ecology would have raised if there was a phosphate impact. So even if on the original Natural England hadn't been consulted, and they should have been, sorry, ecology when they responded originally would have flagged that. There's, like I say, there's no change in volume of material. It's outside of the catchment. I appreciate it's next to it, but it is outside of it. And there were no objections from ecology on the original or on this scheme.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to emphasise really, I know members of the committee will know this, but for everyone in the room, really, it's just to emphasise that obviously we've heard from the parish council and also from the local councillor
about some of the impacts that the area is having at the moment. But just to kind of confirm really the role of the committee on this item is to consider what's before you. You're unable to resolve the problems that we've heard about or are really sympathetic about. What you need to do is make a decision on the proposal before you, and as Millie has set out, really it's still within the parameters of the permission that already exists in terms of the material being brought to the site and then will be taken away and the land restored by this time next year really. And the applicant has also made the case in terms of doing the stockpile in this way will actually be more efficient to reduce the amount of HGVs associated with this development, which is the one before you.
Thank you, members. Oh, Councillor Martin first, then Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank all of you for the presentations and for the speakers. Much appreciated. I wanted to review a couple of points. The first one, it was made a couple of times in the presentation, but the point being that the amount of stuff that's being taken to this site is not changing. The only, just apologies for going over this again, the only change is the height of the mounds, and the benefit of that is ecological, which I will ask Millie to review again in a second to tell us why they want it to be narrower but higher rather than lower and wider. There's an ecological thing there somewhere. So I'll ask her to speak to that in a moment. This is just outside my patch, which is, my patch goes down to Middlezoy. And I just wanted to highlight the fact as well that, again, Councillor Dingwall and Councillor Parfitt both spoke eloquently on this, and I completely understand your concerns, and they are valid, coming from excellent representatives of their communities. From my point of view, we as a county and as a group of members, elected members that represent these areas that are affected by flooding, this is a short-term pain for what we project to be a long-term gain. And I'm happy to propose that we accept this application as proposed by the colleague to the right, in the knowledge that I know that this is awkward for those that live there, but hopefully in the near and distant future, this will benefit us all. This is one of those times where we're all just going to have to deal with it together. But I appreciate the concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just ask where the majority of this soil is coming from?
Yeah, so from my understanding, there's a development site on the other side of Taunton. So the material's coming from this development in Taunton and being transported to the stockpile. And then from the stockpile, it's going to the 3 reservoirs that are going to be reinforced by the soil.
So this to be tied up with the towings coming through, et cetera.
It's nothing to do, not to do with town.
No.
This is the Environment
From
Agency.
Western Soil, and which way are they going to come then?
So they come from Taunton along the A361, along through Boroughbridge, and then they go up Oliver's Road to then the site, and then from the site they go then down to Oliver's Road to the reservoirs. So they don't go to Western Zoyland at all.
Right. I know it's only short-term gain. Short-term is set what my chairman said. Very, very short-term. Sometimes there's no gain without pain. Something that's the world we live in. That is the world we live in. I just wonder if we could have a bit of a compromise and that ban be reduced, because I travel that road quite often in my 77 years, and every time we go past Western Zone, there's another heap of staff out there on the aerodrome. And I did go to school there for 3 years, by the way, and I used to play football on that area. What's all now is covered in one thing and the other. And I just always think sometimes in life there's a compromise. And these lorries on our lanes, if about highways now, I'm sorry, the roads weren't built for it. The weight of some of these lorries going through, I don't care where it's over in Middlezoy, Western Zone, and North Heather. The roads are not designed and they're not being maintained for the amount of work that's being done with the lorries and the weight, the increased work. I'm involved in agriculture. The tractors and trailers are not quite as bad, but they're getting that way. I think it's important to hear what these people got to say, and I just wonder if there could be a bit of a compromise of just lowering that height. And it was granted at 2. I think I was part of the committee that looked at that then. And they want 4. Well, I can see no reason perhaps why it wouldn't want 3. And really, if it's late 2025, it's only going to be temporary anyhow. And I feel probably both parties could put up with that, maybe.
Just to sort of respond to a few of the points you raised, Alan. So I would just say that there is a condition, and there has been on all these permissions, and it's to be carried forward onto this application, that within 6 months of the use finishing, any damage to the adopted highway is to be made good to the satisfaction of the highway authority. So there is kind of effectively a bit of mitigation there. I'm just in terms of, I know you're talking about along the road to Western Soil, and there's always big piles of soil. This isn't this site. That's completely different development. So this is on Oliver's Lane, not off the A372. Yeah, Oliver's Road, sorry. Yeah. So, and not only is it off Oliver's Road, it's also quite some distance from that road as well. So it's not, I know exactly the sites you're referring to. I would also just say that there is already an approved construction traffic management plan, and that details the number of HGV movements, the routes, and this is a section 73 simply to amend the maximum height of the stockpile. And Councillor Martin sort of some of the reasons why. I don't know if I can pull this work. Will it let you zoom in? Yes. So there's the reason why the site is constrained is so you've got this blue area here. That's the flood zone. So they've not putting any of the stockpile in the flood zone. This darker pink bit is to do with archaeology. So they want to keep any of the stockpile, any works away from that, so they're not disturbing any archaeology. I think there's also an ecology buffer, which it sort of runs all the way around the site. I can't quite remember what this green bit is. I think that's the compound. So they've got like a, welfare cabin and things like that. So the reason for the footprint of the stockpile to change is to account for all these other constraints, so it can be as least impactful as possible. So that's why the footprint is changing. I think I've covered off everything that everyone said. Remind me if I haven't.
They're between a rock and a hard place. Put a bit of humour into the job, right?
Gary.
Yeah, just to add, Chair, I totally understand the kind of the suggestion as is there a compromise. Of course, you'll be aware you've got to consider the proposal before you, which is 4 metres on a reduced footprint. And for example, if permission was refused for 4 metres on the same footprint, if the applicant came back with 3 metres, that's less capacity and probably would prolong the project. So we're going beyond November next year. So the message is, we've assessed the proposal. We find it acceptable. It's a temporary impact, and need to make a decision on what's before you today.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. The clarification really, so ecology was consulted on this on the previous application. When the proposal was made to increase the height now, has ecology been consulted on that for this particular increase in height? I think what we haven't really addressed at the moment is the concerns are raised by the parish council about the different chemical reaction kind of effect of increasing the height. If you've got the same amount, it's the same volume, but with putting it in a smaller space, it's going to be more compacted. Does that have an effect on how that affects the land? I do agree, I think, with Councillor Bradford that if we could have a compromise, it might be better. But is it possible to put some sort of condition on the fact that yes, up to 4 metres, but in consultation with ecology, so that if there are kind of any negative effects of that increased height, it can be reduced as needed to. I don't know if it is possible to do it that way, but I'm not really clear whether ecology have been consulted on that particular aspect of the concerns that are raised by the parish council.
Yeah, so ecology have been consulted on this application. They haven't provided a response. The concern is, isn't it, that there would be more runoff which would affect the phosphate catchment area. So whilst ecology haven't responded, the LLFA have, and I appreciate they're not, coming from a phosphates place of mind, but they are coming from a drainage point of view.
And, you know, they say, we do not believe that this will affect the potential flood risk and surface water drainage of the site. So whilst Ecology haven't responded specifically about the phosphates issue, they didn't raise any concerns to the original. And the LNFA aren't saying that they've got concerns about how this is going to change the surface water drainage. So I'm not really quite sure what else I can know. And also I would just emphasise that it is temporary. You know, normally at phosphates, we're looking at sort of permanent schemes, aren't we, that are going to sort of permanently raise the level of phosphates within the catchment. But this is only a temporary scheme.
I do have my reservations that we haven't really consulted enough on the ecological impact of increasing the height and the sort of increased concentration on the area. I understand the reasons for it, but I still have my reservations about it. Thank you.
Thank you. On condition 4 on page 59, it does say about the ecological impact assessments. I mean, I assume that's a living assessment. It was made on the previous application, but it would the assessing would still be ongoing. Would the assessment be ongoing with this change of circumstance?
So I would need to have a look at the document itself to see if there's any sort of what exactly the continuing mitigation measures are. From memory off the top of my head, that condition and the report that it secures relates to the ecology buffers that are on the map. So it's all about protecting that aspect of ecology rather than the phosphates matter. But it is outside of the catchment. You know, I can't really, I'm repeating myself, I know.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Bradford, then Councillor Grimes.
If that heat's gonna go higher, and obviously there's gonna be more soil brought in than what they're talking about, wouldn't mind that. No? Definitely.
The volume of
I withdraw that straight away.
Okay.
We've been in a different position on this one, we can't win either way on this, I can see that.
Councillor Grimes.
After listening to you, Paul, Chairman, I'm happy to second motion put forward by Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further speakers, we've got a proposer, Councillor Martin, and seconder, Councillor Grimes, to accept the recommendation, officer's recommendation to grant permission. All those in favour, please show. Six in favour. Any against? Oh, sorry. Can we do the count again? 7-4. Any again?
None against.
So, any abstentions? 1 and 2 abstentions. So does that make the full conference?
Double check. Councillors left the meeting.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, he voted, but
we counted him before.
Yes.
I counted him. You
No.
know, you got up. No. Does that count? Because
Can we take Councillor Hendry? He did vote before, after hearing the debate, and
I just wonder,
yeah.
I just wonder, Chair, whether for the absolute clarity to count again, Councillor Hendry has voted in favour of the motions. Count 1. So I think if we just go, we just recount the vote, I think, for everyone's clarity.
Right, so all again in favour, please show. 8-4. Any against? No. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Two abstentions, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, we'll take a very short conference break. We'll be back in 5 minutes, and then we'll go for the final application.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard a councillor make the argument that I remember when all this was healed.
And you would get good then.
space.
Right.
Okay, thanks members. We'll resume for the last application of the morning, and this is for the application at land at Lavington Hill. Lavington, Louise, I think you're doing this one, aren't you? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is an application for a variation of two conditions on the planning permission, 5419 quadruple 08, which was a full application or a hybrid application, which was full application for the erection of 100 dwellings, including 30 affordable, and then an outline application for reserved matters for the erection of 75 dwellings. It's also for an application to modify the existing section 106 agreement. The main considerations of this current section 73 application is a principle of development on the site, the variation of conditions 20 and 41 and the amendment to the wording, the development viability and affordable housing provision, highways and access matters and other conditions. This is a site location. We have Lavington Hill on the eastern side of the site, and then the southern edge of Lavington and the allotments to the north of the site. This is the approved site plan and layout, to which there are no changes proposed through this section 73 application. And these are the street scenes from the approved development. I've not included the numerous different house types that were previously approved, as there are no changes proposed to those house types as part of this current application. This slide shows the proposed access and footway details, showing a connection and footpath provision and crossing along Lavington Hill up to the existing village. I know it's probably hard to see on the slide there, but it's got sort of restrictions, included improvements, speed restrictions and traffic calming measures along Lavington Hill. And they were secured both through the Section 106 agreement and the Associated Highways Agreement 278. These are sort of zoomed in proposals there showing those details. Then we move on to just some views of the site. This was in warmer months of the year. These are some of the photographs from previous. This is a view of the access to the site and facing northwest. You can just see the top edge here of Lavington itself. Across the site, a view facing northwest and looking westwards. And the view east along the northern boundary of the site, and this is the right-of-way route that runs along the back edge of the dwellings here. Now it's a Section 73 application, so this means that we should only consider the question of the conditions subject to which planning permission should be granted. And the advice that the government gives us in the guidance is that we should focus attention on national and development plan policies and other material considerations which may have changed significantly since the original grant of planning permission. So this is a Section 73 variation to the previously approved hybrid, and that was approved in 2022. The principle of development on the site has been established by the previous permission, and the previous approved scheme remains extant and can still be implemented as it stands. It is therefore a material consideration in the assessment of this application. The variation to the wording of conditions 20 and 41 the conditions relate to the landscape and ecological management plan details, and it's to change from commencement of the construction to commencement of development. This is to be more precise in its terminology to allow no doubt in what the requirements are for the trigger for these conditions. And officers consider that this is acceptable and would meet the statutory tests for conditions. The applicant is also seeking modification to the Section 106 agreement to amend the obligation regarding affordable housing. A viability assessment has been provided and an independent review undertaken. And this is all within the public domain, fully available and viewable. And this is in accordance with the government advice and guidance on full transparency on such matters in considering planning applications. The proposed development with 30% affordable housing provision would be financially unviable, and the council's own commissioned review of the viability assessment confirms that. The current Section 73 application is bound to the description of the original application, and therefore the applicant is proposing 30 units, which is 30% of the full element, with 0 units in the outline element, which equates to an overall provision of 70% for affordable housing for the scheme. Whilst this is higher than the level indicated by the review report, which did state that it was viable to deliver 23 units, to avoid any confusion, the developer is willing to accept a below normal profit on this basis, and as explained, is bound by the original description of development, which cannot be changed through a Section 73 application. Willabington Parish Council, who will be speaking today, do not agree with the reduction in affordable housing for this development. There is a significant need within Willabington, and there are concerns regarding the council not exploring other options to make the development viable. For example, looking at alternative funding for affordable homes. The officer report and the recommendation in front of you is based on the current application and submitted documents in light of both national and local planning policy. There were also concerns as set out within the report regarding highways and access issues. And this Section 73 application proposes no changes to the details previously approved under the hybrid permission. The Green Lane bridleway was to be connected to with no specific works secured. And Section 106 highways works, which will be secured through the Highways Section 278 details, include the crossing point on Willabington Hill with a continuous footway on the eastern side. The development remains acceptable on these grounds in planning policy terms, and there is no justification to include any other requirements through this Section 73 variation application. There are some other variations to conditions as set out in the report, and also see the table in Appendix A of the officer report. These are to reflect the changes and details that have already been approved and conditions that have been discharged. So in a similar fashion as we did, I think it was last month with the Section 73 application, things have moved on, some details have been submitted, so we do need to reflect that in the current conditions. So the summary recommendation is that the proposed Section 73 variations of condition wording for 20 and 41 is acceptable. The changes to other conditions to bring these up to date with a more recent discharge of condition application is acceptable. And the proposed modification of the Section 106 agreement to change the provision of affordable housing is considered acceptable and has been demonstrated through the accompanying viability reports. A review mechanism has been agreed with the applicant to be included. The proposed level of affordable housing will allow delivery of the site, including affordable homes, into the local housing market and the council's housing supply. Officers do request that members delegate the final wording of the conditions relating to current live discharge of condition applications, so the conditions listed on the screen there, 3, 7, 14, 16 and 23, to officers to allow this to reflect the up-to-date position at the time of issue. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Louise. We have 2 speakers on this item. First, I'd like to invite Councillor Alan Sharp, who's Chair of Willabington Parish Council, to the table, please. And you have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start.
The Parish Council fully understands the need for developments to be viable, but in this case, the application it objects to using the reduction in the number of affordable homes as a means to achieve this. Our reason for objecting is that there has been no evidence-based justification provided that definitively shows that reducing the number of affordable homes is the only way of making this development viable. We know that there is a substantial local housing need within Woollavington and firmly believe that we need to have a joined-up review to see if there are any innovative ways of maintaining some, if not all, of the affordable homes whilst achieving viability, so that the need can be met. Therefore, coming to a win-win solution rather than what appears to be a default one where the local community yet again loses. We have proactively tried to get this review started, but with little success due to an apparent unwillingness of all parties to engage. We therefore suggest that it is appropriate for the committee to propose that it defers the decision, requests a key stakeholder open-minded review, including ourselves, be conducted, and receives a report on whether there are alternative ways of achieving viability for the site, e.g. through external funding, changes to other obligations, etc., whilst maximising the number of affordable homes. We understand and accept that the outcome of this review may give the same result, but at least we would have had full involvement, including agreeing the final recommendation, and will be able to explain and support the decision locally, whilst at the same time demonstrating how devolution can work in the future.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Chris Marsh of Pegasus Planning Group to come forward, please. 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start there. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee on behalf of my client, Wayne Homes, in respect of the application for variation of the extant permission for residential development at Woollavington Hill, Woollavington. As committee members will be very aware, the site already benefits from planning permission granted in hybrid format for 175 dwellings respectively to form a logical extension in a sustainable location at the edge of Woollavington. Upon reviewing that permission, however, it has become apparent that for reasons of precision, it is necessary to reframe a limited number of planning conditions, as you've heard, to meet the relevant tests, while others have since been overtaken by events and may now be presented as compliance conditions following the approval of relevant details. These are essentially housekeeping points to ensure precision and enforceability and do not materially affect controls secured on the original permission. Additionally, however, it has proved necessary to revisit the viability of the scheme in the context of an increasingly challenging commercial environment in the period since the original permission was granted. These conditions include a reduction in prices paid by registered providers, ever-increasing build costs, and a significant cooling of the housing market caused by high inflation and reactionary hikes in interest rates. In that context, it's regrettably not viable to deliver the development in its form as permitted, including the provision of policy-compliant affordable housing at 30% of the total. As such, the site is, for the time being, undeliverable unless suitable adjustments are made in line with the express provisions of the adopted local plan and specifically policy D6, which makes express reference to understanding the deliverability of sites at a specific point in time. And I'd add that that policy doesn't instruct, nor does it give authority to decision makers to explore alternative reductions in obligations. And as you've also heard earlier this morning, vacant building credit is another example of those kind of mechanisms. In that regard, viability evidence presented to and accepted by the council, having taken independent third-party advice from the Valuation Office Agency, demonstrates that the scheme cannot support more than 23 affordable homes based on typically accepted returns. Notwithstanding, given the limitations of Section 73 in the current application, reduces the level of affordable, to only 30% more than the minimum, and hopefully bringing about a deliverable scheme that retains 17% on-site provision. There are no physical changes to the element granted full planning permission, nor reduction in affordable in that respect. In short, Wayne Homes are committed to delivering much needed new homes. We don't dispute the need for new homes, including 30 affordable homes at Woollavington. We appreciate entirely the frustration that might be felt locally when sites are granted permission, then apparently sit dormant for an extended period thereafter. That frustration is frankly shared by a house builder that doesn't land bank and whose business model is dependent on prompt build out sites. We therefore appeal to councillors today to approve the proposals in line with your officers' considered recommendations, giving the best chance of ensuring the site's delivery and contribution to much needed local market and affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank
Set the bar pretty high.
Thank you. There are a number of issues raised by Councillor Sharp around sort of evidence-based justification and just to further clarification on what has happened around sort of not being able to include other schemes to complement the deficit in affordable housing. I think it's probably referring to other schemes in the past that have happened and that it's gone through other organisations such as Homes England and things like that. Would you like to just give a summary of sort of the position that exists for this application?
I think I will make a start and then maybe Gary might want to interject as well. Yes, we have had some discussions with the parish council directly on these matters. I think for members' clarification, a key point I would raise is that we have to assess this application that's before us and on the terms that it has been made with the associated viability report. We have, as a council, undertaken the review report of that viability and all of that, as I think the agent was just explaining there, is fully compliant with our policy on affordable housing, which specifically allows for viability to be taken into consideration, and also does not, the other policies that secure planning obligations do not have that same in somewhat allowance for considerations of viability matters. And then to take you back to another point raised from the parish council there in the recommendation and request for a review of alternative provision of affordable housing in the local area. That is something that can be explored, and we have been having exchanges with the parish council on that basis. But I'm afraid that matter needs to sit outside of the planning process in terms of determining a planning application. Contacts and links have been sort of provided in terms of having those additional discussions, but a planning application and how we deal with that as the local planning authority cannot sort of give regard to other grant funding and other mechanisms that could provide the affordable housing. What we have to focus on here is the development plan requirements and the material considerations before us. Gary, I don't know if you want to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Louise covered everything 100%, to be honest with you, so I'm just kind of adding to that very briefly. And just certainly in terms of Councillor Sharp, the way he is addressed to the committee, I thought was very reasonable. You know, can all understand that, and we'd all totally agree that as much affordable housing as possible is required. But the way that it's delivered in the main is through private developments and the application of certain policies, which are, and the policy here is very similar to other policies around the country, that it is subject to viability. Other policies that require Section 106 contributions are in a slightly different category of mitigation. So if mitigation was required to that degree at the original permission stage, they can't really be watered down now, because one of the tests of that mitigation is that permission should have been refused if that mitigation wasn't secured. So we can't start watering it down at this stage. Affordable housing is slightly different in that it's a kind of a viability based requirement, encouragement of delivery as part of the development. And the viability case that's been put forward by the applicant has quite rightly been rigorously assessed through the district valuers. District valuers only work for the public sector, and I think they've done a very rigorous assessment of the viability position. And in fact, their conclusion is that the site is viable if 13% is delivered on site. And obviously the proposal here is for 17%. That's what's before you today. Obviously that is also influenced by the fact that the description of the development can't change through this proposal, through this application. I would say also in terms of the role of grant funding and Homes England, for example, if, for example, Homes England came along, then they're not present on this site. But if they were, they couldn't prop up the percentage of affordable through the Section 106 agreement, because Homes England funding, it's what's called additionality. It has to be outside of the Section 106 take, and you'll see that soon on other sites as well, because things are very kind of fluid on the affordable housing position at the moment. So even if Homes England were to come along and say, yes, we can contribute X towards the site, and that's obviously part of a kind of a bidding kind of process anyway, it wouldn't change what's on the table here for yourselves as the planning authority. So it is with regret that this situation is here, but it is a very typical situation, I'm afraid, committee.
Okay, thank you. There's no speakers, just a moment. Can I just ask for just a bit of clarity? I think it was on your final summary slide, Louise, and there was a sentence there about there being a review mechanism. Can you? I'm just not absolutely clear what that means. Could you just explain it a bit more for me, please?
Of course, bear with me, I might just find some useful information. So a review mechanism is to allow for further consideration when the development's actually going to be constructed. So it allows for almost the change in circumstances over time from the figures that were prepared and produced for this application to ensure, often people think it's a tool to sort of protect the developer and give them a bit more sort of return and things, but it's not. It's to allow the local authority to be able to strengthen its compliance with the relevant policies, and to allow, if there is scope and there's more profit made by the developer, to allow for us to review the affordable housing being provided and to actually seek an increase if that's relevant. Obviously, it could go the other way, it could go up and down, but it allows it to reflect the current sort of market situation at that time.
Can I ask, so should there be a decrease when that review, in the course of those review mechanisms, would that then come back to committee?
Chair, my understanding of review mechanism, typically they're upwards only reviews. So it's usually an opportunity, and we have to manage expectations here, but given viability challenges, is that review mechanisms tend to be upward only. So it's an opportunity for officers actually to come back at some point and say, it might be, no, that more wasn't secured, but I'm aware of cases elsewhere where planning officers being able to come back and say to the committee, just for information, we were able to secure a bit more. So my understanding is that it's an upward only mechanism. I'm not 100% sure of that though, Chair. That's my only hesitation.
Thank you.
Can I just add there, yeah, and that would be a matter that we could we would need to negotiate between the lawyers, respective lawyers, when we're sorting out the final wording of the modification to the 106 agreement. So we can check that at that stage.
Thank you. Comments, proposals. Councillor Bradford.
Right, guys, don't want to get boring, do we? Or anyone else want to do it? Right. I think as a planning committee, we can all accept the pressures on building companies at the moment with the inflationary pressures and the guns ahead to build more and more houses. Everybody wants more and more affordable houses. And as time goes on, what's going to dictate how many affordable houses you're going to have is the price the developer bought the land for. So the man at the bottom of the ladder might be, I'm a farmer, by the way, and I've got something maybe involved, all right, later. I find that the value at the start, in order to do these affordable homes, that's the only way it's going to work, because you're under tremendous inflationary pressure for building. I've done building myself in the last 5 years, so I know exactly what's involved. It's a tremendous headache to cope with. And with people getting mortgages that's also a problem. They aren't cheap. So I do think sometimes we're up against it as a planning committee, and if we put too many rules, laws and stipulations on developers, they aren't going to do it. And you're going to have less affordable homes. So really, there's got to be a little bit of give and take in order to move forward sometimes. And I will say I'm a bit concerned this morning that the Wool Abington Parish Council have they been talking to the developer or
Sorry, you need to address the questions.
sorry, I'm sorry, I am sorry, yeah. Have they been talking? I'm a bit of a devil, I guess, that's how I am, right? Have they been talking to the developers, the Wool Abington and Drury County? Because we're all aware of the fact the gigafactory is coming out and there's going to be a tremendous input one in another area, et cetera. So this is probably going to be the start of something big.
I'm afraid I'm not aware of if discussions have taken place between the parish council.
Really? Well, that's a bit naughty. And can I also add, sorry, oh, go on, I know a bit about what goes on in the developing side of it. Was this the one that Gladman's went pouring Wool Abington and? No? Sorry again, I'm sorry. I'm mistaken with the Chairman again. Fine. Just the one Gladman's. Talking Wool Abington.
I think we've got to stick to the site that we're considering.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to know. If it was Gladman's and promoting it, then they should have been talking to Wool Abington Parish Council regarding all these things.
Matters outside of this committee, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, right, I'll withdraw that. Okay.
Chair, I can confirm, yeah, it's outside of our consideration or the committee's consideration. Certainly the indicator again for the parish council that there hasn't been that engagement on this particular issue. I would add to that that some of the viability issues out there. I think sort of technical, financial implication in terms of delivery of sites and affordable housing is quite a heavyweight requirement on developments. That's why we do push it as hard as we can. Unfortunately, the way that affordable housing is delivered still in the current planning system is through this mechanism and is subject to viability. I think the important thing I would emphasise though is that the applicant have come to us with a revised position to the viability. The question for us is, has that been challenged? And I think through the district valuers assessment, it absolutely has been challenged.
Thank you for the response. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hendry and Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Watched the presentation, I've listened to both of the case officers and listened to the actual public speakers themselves. However, all things considered, somebody has to put their head above the parapet here. And I'm quite happy to move the recommendation to grant permission.
Thank you. And Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. While I don't agree with the reduction in affordable houses, I think we have to deal with reality and what's in front of us. And on this case, I agree with Councillor Hendry and I'm happy to second the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So if we have no further debate, I don't think any of us like the reduction, do we? But we can also understand the challenges in this case. So we have a proposer and a seconder to grant permission and the recommendations before us. All those in favour, please show. That's 9-4. Any against? And any abstentions? We've got one abstention, so that is carried. Thank you, and that concludes this morning's session. So thank you, members, and we'll see you back at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Always sort of, or I guess it's joking.